Yo.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an all-new edition of War Week Radio Afternoon Chats. My name is Joseph Herron, fight scribe for FightSaga.com. And today we have a special guest. We're being joined by heavyweight hopeful, the very knowledgeable Mr. Brian Dancler. Brian, welcome to the program, brother.
Hey, man, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. I'm glad you have me.
Well, I tell you what, it's always a pleasure to chat boxing with you, my friend. With all of your years' experience in the fight game, both as a matchmaker, manager, promoter, and heavyweight fighter. So I tell you what, let's go through the syllabus today. These are going to be, well, all of the topics of discussion for this afternoon. We've got Fury versus Wilder 3. The pay-per-view. The pay-per-view preliminary bouts were just announced for July 24th. And guys, if you were on the bubble about purchasing this, well, buckle up. This is a no-brainer now. This is a must-see. All 4 bouts are going to be must-see TV for July 24th. Also, we're going to be talking about, will Deontay Wilder ask Rivals' own Russ Anber back on his team as the glove and wrap inspector on the day of the fight? Then we also have Pacquiao versus Spence. We'll talk about the pay-per-view as well as, well, Mr. Hall of Famer, Mr. Al Bernstein. He believes Pacquiao should use the Porter blueprint. Why or why not? And guys, we're also going to be talking about Lopez versus Kambosos on Triller for Juneteenth. Did Triller make a big mistake by moving their June 5th date? We're also going to talk about the possibility of maybe a major upset on that day. We're going to ask Mr. Dancler what he thinks. And the last but not least, we've got Canelo versus Plant. Will the fight happen or will negotiates break down? And if it does happen, will it take place on DAZN or Fox pay-per-view? Mr. Dancler, which topic would you like to discuss first?
We'll go from bottom to top. Let's talk about the DAZN, the Caleb Plant versus Canelo negotiations possibly falling through.
Very good. Right now, it looks like Eddie Hearn's hard at work trying to, well, represent Canelo in his negotiation with PBC and the current IBF super middleweight champion, Caleb Plant. Obviously, Al Haymon and Caleb Plant would prefer to, well, fulfill their contractual obligation and their relationship and further enhance it with Fox in placing the biggest star in North America on their platform. And obviously, well, Eddie Hearn just signed a long 5-year deal with DAZN. And obviously, their 2 biggest stars on that platform would be Anthony Joshua and Canelo Alvarez. Obviously, DAZN will try to do everything they can to keep Alvarez on that platform. So here's the big question, Brian. In your mind, does this fight happen or is this going to be an obstacle? Deciding which platform to put this fight on, is that going to ultimately be the stumbling block?
The old politics of boxing. I hate them sometimes, man. I hate to talk about them with some fans because they don't understand just how big a part of the business politics play.
Indeed. It's very easy to say, hey, we need the best fight and the best. But look, a lot of things go into it, a lot of different factors, not only the financials, but also the relationships that these promoters and these fighters have with their respective platforms.
Yeah, most definitely. So let's get into it, man. We're going to get to the meat and potatoes. I believe that Canelo not being kind of like tied down to one network or one promoter, he really having Eddie is good. Eddie is a hell of a promoter. He's a hell of a negotiator. You know, he's brought us some good fights. I do think his undercards need to get strengthened up. I haven't seen Eddie haven't had an undercard like his Wilder Fury undercard. You know what I mean? And but you know, he's still a baby in this American promoting, you know,
The American market, absolutely.
The American market. So he's making his way. But I believe that the best, far as for the price, it should be out. I got DAZN. You know, I pay that $10, $9 a month still. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, so I don't mind it being on DAZN. You know, but I feel like it'll have the best undercard if it's on Fox and PBC. But it's ultimately what Canelo wants to do and how bad Caleb Plant wants to prove that he's the best. Because at the end of the day, Canelo has more to lose and less to gain than Caleb Plant, in my opinion.
Well, that depends, Brian. Just think about this, man. If you're Caleb Plant and you lose your title to Canelo Alvarez, your stock considerably diminishes. His marketability, his market value without that belt around his waist.
This depends on how well he does against Canelo.
Indeed.
In my opinion, because losing to a guy like Canelo is like Canelo losing to a guy like Floyd Mayweather.
Well, look, if it may not do anything for his marketability to the diehard boxing community, but unless you're a huge ticket seller, not having a world title around your waist diminishes your marketability considerably. It diminishes your attraction to major networks. And also, do you think, I mean, this is not, Heyman doesn't customarily do this.
Okay.
Do you really think he's going to want his lone 168-pound champion to compete in a one-off on a rival network?
No.
So, in my opinion, I think Heyman is going to try to sell a package deal to Canelo Alvarez saying, hey, look, I will guarantee you $30 million per fight. But you have to compete 3 times consecutively on Fox pay-per-view against Caleb Plant. If Caleb Plant wins, a rematch, and then either Jamal Charlo or David Benavidez. And in the case that Caleb Plant loses, Caleb Plant, David Benavidez, and Jamal Charlo. Heyman doesn't like to make deals without rematch clauses or options. It has to make sense for PBC, but here's the caveat. Unfortunately, Canelo is the draw. He's the guy with all the cards, and he's the guy who's going to dictate and set the terms. So if Caleb Plant really wants this opportunity, he's going to have to agree to pretty much terms that are dictated and determined by Canelo Alvarez. In my opinion, Brian, that's where I think the negotiations are going to ultimately fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like wherever Canelo can maximize the amount of money he's going to get is what he's probably going to lean to. So it's going to come to a bidding war, in my opinion, who can offer him the most guaranteed upfront money to take the risk. And so far, that's been DAZN. I think that's why he's been over there. And because I don't think he wants to be tied down to a multi-fight deal. I think Canelo likes going on a fight-to-fight basis. He likes to fight who he want to fight, when he want to fight, where he want to fight him. He doesn't like to be told who he got to fight next. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense to him. And I know that they said that Triple G, that I know he came on record and said that after the Plant fight or whatever, he would be willing to fight Triple G or something like that. You know, he would look into that. You know what I'm saying? And Canelo has options.
Well, let's look at this logically, though. Gennady Golovkin is already committed for the rest of the year, right? He's already taken. He's going to fight a tune-up in August or September, and then he's going to fight Ryota Murata in Japan on New Year's Eve. That's going to be a huge event over there, and that's going to be a huge event for DAZN in their expansion efforts, right?
Right.
So that's not even a possibility until possibly May of next year. So what are his other options on DAZN? Demetrius Andrade?
Now wait a minute though. That would be a fight just merely solely to please the fans if it happens.
Of course.
Because Demetrius Andrade, as much as I think he's skilled, as much as I think that's a good fight for Canelo, he don't bring nothing. He brings peanuts to the table, and I'm just being honest, man.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's a shame, man, because he is one of the best fighters in boxing. We want to thank Peter for joining us. Here, check this out. Check this out, Brian.
In a sea of sharks.
Oh, absolutely. And we want to thank Peter for joining us. Thank you, brother, for taking time out of your afternoon, letting us be a part of your day. He says Caleb's sweet hands for a reason. 12 KOs only.
Yeah, man. Unfortunately, Caleb is a boxer. He's a pure boxer. Well, he's a boxer puncher. He has that hit and not get hit style. But he showed me against Uzaki, who's a hard hitter, has a good chin.
Yep.
He dropped him a couple times. So he has good enough power to keep you at bay. You know what I mean?
Former champion.
Yes, I never seen a person dominate or beat him the way that Caleb Plant did it. Because he beat a fighter, one of my hometown fighters, Andre Durrell.
Yep.
And I was honestly I knew the game plan Durrell brought to the table wasn't going to win. Caleb Plant can fight on the inside. He has a good jab. He has good ring IQ. He also proven in that fight that he could bang on the inside if he has to.
Yep.
So I believe that Canelo would beat him because his experience. Canelo's seen every style it is. I think a guy I think Benavidez would present because a stylistic matchup, maybe a different challenge for Canelo.
Well, that would be fight of the year candidate. But think about this. And, even looking at Golovkin at this stage of his career, Demetrius Andrade, Jermall Charlo, here's the problem that all of those badasses in and around 68, this is the problem that when facing a guy like Canelo Alvarez, one, he's in his fighting prime right now. Two, he's active. Now, let me. This is the reason why.
That was Billy Joe Saunders' downfall, and I told you that Canelo stays in the gym. He's the only guy that's trying to fight 4 times a year, and that activity plays a lot because people have been inactive during this COVID pandemic, and Canelo has constantly been fighting, and I just don't see. I'm just going to be honest. I see people giving him a test, but I don't see anything outside. It's going to take a special fighter to beat him.
Look, brother, you and I both know the only guy who has a chance of maybe defeating Canelo Alvarez at 68 or 75. In my opinion, here we go. You ready for this?
Yep.
Son of God, Andre Ward. That's the only guy I see beating him, dude.
And let's be clear. The only reason Canelo would want this fight is because of Dre's inactivity.
Yep, that's it.
And they will be banking on the inactivity. But hopefully, I heard that Dre has been in the gym and he's still in good shape. But I don't think that Canelo's going to be able to draw him out.
I don't think so either. One, he hasn't fought at this level, at the world-class level, in 4 years. It's one thing to be in the gym and to stay in shape, but for a guy like Canelo, you got to be in fighting shape.
But this is my thing, though.
Well, listen. At age 38, and you know this, Dancler, from experience of being in the gym, it's very difficult to get up from behind the announcer's table and to commit to a full balls-out training camp. At 38 years old, does he want to put his body through that kind of wear and tear?
I think he would need at least 3 tune-up fights before fighting Canelo.
At age 38, does he want to do that?
Well, for that type of money, I think he should.
You know what? And I would love to see it for Dre because
I think he deserves it.
Well, absolutely. He's a Hall of Famer. And he went his entire career without having that kind of huge marquee mainstream fight. He had a couple of big fights in his career, but nothing to the size of what would be an outing opposite Canelo Alvarez. Right. I would love to see that for him, but boy, that's a lot to ask. 38 years old, 4 years of inactivity against the pound for pound best fighter in boxing.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Sweet Hands, Caleb Plant. I see Canelo eventually cutting off the ring, closing the distance, and stopping Caleb Plant in the mid to late rounds, and here's why. Look at Caleb Plant. Since winning the title in an impressive performance against Jose Uzcategui, that was back in 2019, January. Mm-hmm. Since then, he's fought Mike Lee, Vincent Feigenbutz.
Hey, lay off Mike Lee, man. He's a Notre Dame grad.
I love Mike Lee, but he's a semi-retired fighter.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why he was knocked out in 3 rounds against Caleb. And then you've got Vincent Feigenbutz. And then after that, Caleb Truax, another guy who's on the back 9 and is ready for retirement.
Well, he comes to fight.
Well, of course, but that doesn't mean he comes to win.
Yeah, I think he come to win. He just can't excuse my language. He can't mess with Caleb Plant, you know, and it's just like that
not at this stage of his career, no. And that's my point. It's like he's, in my opinion, Canelo is catching, if this fight happens, he's catching Caleb Plant at the perfect time. Because give Caleb Plant another 3 or 4 more years, and he might beat Canelo. But right now, he's as green as it gets. He's nowhere near the level.
Well, that's how Mayweather caught Canelo, you know?
That's right.
I don't think, and I'm a big Floyd supporter. I don't think that Canelo prime versus prime is better than Floyd. But I do think it would have been a much different fight, a better fight now, you know what I mean? But
well, of course.
Yes, that may be true. And this might be one of those things where this is a big learning experience for Caleb Plant. It can only, you know, I think it could help him out. You know what I mean? Because Canelo got better from fighting Floyd. Maybe Caleb Plant will get better from fighting Canelo.
Yep. Well, that's if he doesn't get knocked out, if he doesn't get stretched. Yeah. So I tell you what, it's because ask me this. Do you think Billy Joe Saunders is going to be better after his experience with Canelo getting knocked out?
But I honestly think Caleb Plant would beat Billy Joe Saunders. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to, you know, I think Billy Joe, I like Billy Joe, but I think Caleb Plant is a more versatile all-around fighter.
Agreed.
Than Billy Joe. And he's also bigger and longer and stronger.
Agreed. So, yeah, in my opinion, I don't think this fight happens, Brian, at the end of the day. At least not right now. Because I think negotiations are going to break down because of what we just stated earlier in the show. So I tell you what, 20 minutes into the show, let's move on to our next topic.
Let's go.
And that's Lopez versus Kambosos on Triller. Guys, because of the Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul debacle taking place in the same city on the next day, June 6th, Sunday, Triller and Ryan Kavanaugh, well, in their judgment, thought it would be best to move it to June 19th. But what they don't realize, Brian, okay, first of all, I'm going to ask you, was that a wise decision in your mind?
I don't think so. But he has his handlers, and I guess they thought it would be the best decision to move the show. So, you know what I mean? They did, but I don't think it is. I don't think it's it was a good idea, but we're going to find out, but I don't think it was. I think it's going to be some repercussions behind it.
Well, you know, and before anyone faults Steven Espinosa, Floyd Mayweather, and everyone involved with this event, they were trying to help out Triller. Think about this. Not only was it going to be on the same weekend, the following evening, saying, hey, buddy, you know what? This is in a different venue. It's appealing to a different demographic. But there's going to be a ton of global media in town. Okay, take advantage of that. You're going to have everyone covering the Floyd Logan event. Media outlets that wouldn't ordinarily be at your event. They're already going to be in town. They already have their hotels booked that weekend. Take advantage of it. Triller could have benefited from all of the different media sources, okay, participating in both media weeks. They were actually trying to help them out. In my opinion, this was a foolish move by Ryan Kavanaugh, moving it to June 19th, because now you've got to compete with so many different events going on in so many different cities. The media is going to be scattered, and they're not going to be able to focus on the Triller event. You've got the return of Noah Inoue on ESPN that same night. You've got the return of Jermall Charlo in Houston, Texas. You've got the return of Jaime Munguia on DAZN in El Paso, Texas. You've got Chavez Jr. versus Anderson Silva and Chavez Sr. versus Camacho Jr. on the same night on pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they've got to compete with, and that's in all different areas of the country. So they're not going to have nearly as much media during fight week. This was a terrible decision, and with all of that competition and all of those events going on, and if you're already subscribers to Showtime and DAZN, those are all free events.
Right.
So, and again, and instead of the regular asking price for a Triller event of $49.99, they've increased it by $10 for this event. They're going to be asking you to shell out $59.99 for something that is going to be dealing with all of that competition that I just stated. In my opinion, Brian, this is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. This is a huge financial flop, and this could affect Triller's commitment to real boxing events. Your thoughts?
I agree with they could have took advantage of the media outlet. It depends. Like, I think people would have tuned in to both shows because the pandemic, we thirsty for boxing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So yes, I think that they're gonna be less successful than what they could have been because they could have benefited off all the social media outlets. So I agree with you. I think that they should have stuck to their guns and they should have had faith in they system that they got going. Triller they put on some good shows. Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, that was a good little old school battle.
I loved it.
Yeah. But from what I've been hearing though, the money hasn't been right.
See, that's my point. This, in my opinion, when they fail to bring in the dollars and meet their goal, their financial goal in this fight, in this event, it seems because of all the lawsuits that have been filed against Triller and Ryan Kavanaugh, they've been using money for each event, robbing Peter to pay Paul, basically. They're hoping that this event makes enough money to settle on some of these lawsuits that have been filed against them. And keep in mind, Mike Tyson has gone on record and stating, as well as Roy Jones, hey, man, they still owe us money from that event that took place on Thanksgiving weekend of last year. Keep in mind, there's a reason why Jake Paul left Triller and decided to sign with Showtime.
Yeah.
They probably still owe him money as well. This is not a good look, and this could be potentially catastrophic for Triller's involvement in boxing moving forward. Your final thoughts on this before we move to the individual matchup and look at the odds for Lopez versus Kambosos?
You think I think Lopez is going to pull it out. I think Lopez is a better all-around fighter. I like Kambosos, but, I don't think he's going to be capable of getting the job done. I think Lopez is going to stop him.
Well, according to Lopez, he's a little pissed off at all of the, smack talk that Kambosos has been doing, and I'll be honest with you, I really like his mindset. He comes into the ring with a lot of confidence, in the mindset of an undefeated fighter. And when you look at the individual style matchup, Teofimo Lopez is a guy who likes to bang from mid-range. He likes to stay in the pocket, but he looks to try and time and counter you with his explosive speed and power.
Yeah, he does.
Kambosos is a guy who reminds me of a 135 version of Ricky Hatton.
Yeah.
He's going to try and use feints and disjunct upper body and head movement to move into the pocket and try to smother Teofimo Lopez's offense.
Yeah.
If Teofimo Lopez is incapable of timing him with something big as he's coming in, this could resemble Hatton versus Kostya and pose a lot of stylistic problems for Teofimo Lopez. So Lopez says, you know what? I'm pissed off at this guy. I was going to, just take my time, but you know what? I'm going to get him out of there. I'm going to knock him out in the first round. This one doesn't even go past the first round. Dancler, do you agree with him or not?
Not that it don't go past the first round. No, I don't agree.
Your final prediction for this, brother, before we move forward.
I believe that his pedigree, that Lopez's pedigree, he's coming off a win from Lomachenko. His confidence is extremely high. He's been in the gym. I think he's the more versatile fighter. I expect him to win a unanimous decision or a late stoppage. I don't think it's going to be early. Well, it could be like around the fifth. I think the fifth or to the ninth round is when it's going to be stopped.
I'll say this. If Teofimo Lopez delivers with the same kind of performance he did against Richard Comey in grabbing the IBF title, if he does that to an undefeated, very confident and physically durable guy like George Kambosos Jr., brother, I'm saying this right now, he will be the next big star of boxing. He will be boxing's next Floyd Mayweather Jr.
No.
I mean, he's got a lot of work to do, defensively especially. But in terms of physical gifts, natural just reflexes, athleticism, power, speed, his charisma, I'll be on board. If he makes light work of this durable, strong-minded, confident, undefeated guy, then I'm on board, brother. I think he's going to be the next big star of boxing. But I tell you what, we still have a lot to discuss. Let's move forward then to Pacquiao versus Spence. This is interesting, right?
Very. Very.
And we look specifically to the recent comments of Hall of Fame announcer Al Bernstein. He said this, quote, "What I think might be surprising about this fight is that one of the blueprints that Sean Porter showed in this fight with Spence was the idea of boxing, punching, moving in and out of range, using lateral movement, attacking, not attacking, create an awkward attack mode. Manny Pacquiao is capable of doing that even at age 42. We've seen some evidence of this. So he could be a very interesting puzzle for Errol Spence to figure out," end quote. Yeah. Do you buy in? Are you buying into that? Do you think he's capable of putting forth that same Porter performance, and does Pacquiao want to?
Now, I think the size and attributes of the difference of the size and Porter and Pacquiao is huge. So I think Pacquiao should stick to what he's been doing, blitzing in, blitzing out, coming at them weird angles, throwing them punches at weird angles, and just trying to, time him and get, because he's faster, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I think that the jab of Errol Spence, the long jab, the fight, he knows how to keep his distance. He has good
educated
footwork.
Jab, brother.
Yes, and the body work is, and I think he's going to wear Pacquiao down.
Yep, at age 42, is Pacquiao going to be capable of doing that for 12 rounds? Now, let's go back to Al Bernstein's statement because he said blueprint. Brian, that was ultimately a losing blueprint, brother.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true that Sean Porter landed more punches than any other Spence opponent since turning pro, landing 177 in 12 rounds. But when you look at the scorecards and you actually go back and look at that fight, was that fight nearly as close as everyone has been making it out to be?
Hell no. Hell
no, it wasn't. Now, once again, look at the scorecards, guys. On two of the judges' scorecards, Steve Weisfeld and Ray Danseco, two competent judges. They scored it 8 rounds to 4 with an extra point for the Errol Spence knockdown in the 11th. So that's not all that close. The only reason why it was a split decision is because old, incompetent Larry Hazard Jr. scored the bout 7 rounds to 3 in favor of Porter. Take away that scorecard, guys, and it's a unanimous decision and a comfortable win for Errol Spence Jr. Brian, in your mind, is 8 rounds to 4 that close?
No, it's not. I think there were some close rounds, but I think he got beat decisively.
Yep. In my opinion, that's no blueprint that Pacquiao wants to follow, my friend.
Not at all.
Let me ask you something. What should Pacquiao do? In your mind, if you were in his corner, if you were drawing it up in the war room and sitting there watching fight tape, what does Manny Pacquiao have to do to hand Errol Spence his first loss as a professional?
I think he has to just take the fight 1 round at a time. You got to know. He got to know, so he got a very high ring IQ and he has experience on his side, but I don't really think that it is anything that he can do to win that fight.
I'm with you, brother. In my opinion, now Pacquiao is a special fighter. He's going to have big fight experience, and Errol Spence will be going into this fight it is going to be very uncommon for him because he's not the A side in this fight. To the judges at ringside, he'll be facing an opponent for the first time in which he won't get the benefit of the doubt on the very close competitive rounds.
Right.
Pacquiao, in my opinion, he would be wise to try and keep this fight in the center of the ring, consistently throwing off 1 or 2 punches at a time, then immediately pivoting around him, trying to keep the action in the center of the ring. I don't know how long he'll be able to do this. If Pacquiao is still Pacquiao, he still has some of the best feet in the welterweight division. But at age 42, Brian, will we see, and 2 years of inactivity, will we see the same Manny Pacquiao? Will we see the Manny Pacquiao of old or an old Manny Pacquiao? Your thoughts on that?
I think we're going to see an old Manny Pacquiao.
Oh, boy. Look, even in his fighting prime, circa 2008, 2009, this is probably the toughest style matchup and his toughest assignment throughout his entire career. You're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, a big welterweight fighter at 5'10", and one who's more intelligent and more athletic than Antonio Margarito. And he's a complete fighter, one of the most intelligent, effective aggressors in the fight game, has one of the most educated jabs in boxing, and he's in his fighting prime. In my opinion, Brian, this is a fight he cannot win. I'm with you, brother.
Yep. I got Errol Spence by UD or late stoppage.
I co-sign, brother. In fact, yeah, as much as I would love to see Pacquiao make history on this day, becoming the oldest welterweight champion in the history of our sport, I don't think it's going to happen. In fact, I think Freddie Roach is going to throw in the towel between rounds 7 and 8. And he's going to say, I'm sorry, Pac, I can't see you take any more punishment. So let's move on to the next Pacquiao versus Spence topic. Because of the huge guaranteed first purse for both fighters, will this pay-per-view inevitably lose money? Keep in mind, there's a reason why W.A.W chose to scrap the idea of putting together Crawford versus Pacquiao domestically after the money fell through in Dubai. He has no, and it's no indictment of Pacquiao and Crawford's ability to draw or level of attraction. It's an indictment of the fans. He's not confident. And this is one of the reasons why W.A.W is trying his best to keep fights off the pay-per-view platform. He doesn't believe that fight fans purchase these events any longer. And with a $40 or $50 million guaranteed purse, boy, you have to sell well over 1 million units in order just to break even.
Of course.
Brian, do you think Spence versus Pacquiao will lose money on August 21st?
That's a hard one, but I think it's going to lose money.
You think it's going to lose money?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do 1 million.
Yeah. See, and that's the problem with putting together these. You know what? As much as I hate to say it, and as much as I can't stand Dana White, he's got the right idea. He gives these fighters only $1 million guarantees in these big events, and he gives them a larger percentage on the back end. In my opinion, that's what has to happen in boxing. These fighters need to be more reasonable and quit demanding these huge guaranteed purses because, you know, in my opinion, that's the real reason why we don't see more often the best fighters fighting the best. And fans don't understand that. Piracy is the biggest problem that the business of boxing faces currently.
Yep.
And until we find a way to monetize those illegal streams, it's going to continue to be a huge problem. So what's your final prediction? How many pay-per-view buys does Spence versus Pacquiao get on August 21st, Brian?
I say around like 700,000 to 800,000.
You know, and most people would look at that as a success. But when you consider that the guaranteed purse is hovering around $50 million, wow. And also, what most fans don't realize is that with the antiquated pay-per-view model, you still have to give 50% of the gross proceeds to the cable and satellite distributors. So even though it may seem like a ton of money generated by 800,000 purchases, slice that in half, guys. So if they charge $80, if they get 500,000 for every 500,000 sales, that's only $20 million, guys. So you've got a guaranteed purse of 50 million. You need well over 1 million, as well as a very healthy live gate.
Yeah.
The gate I'm not worried about. This may be Manny Pacquiao's final fight. It's going to be a sellout and very quickly. But are they going to be able to sell those kind of units in this day and age of piracy? I don't think so, Brian. Your final thoughts on this matchup and this event?
I think the event will be, I think the live gate will do good. I don't think the pay-per-view is going to do good as it should. I feel like the Errol Spence is going to win, and he's going to win by late stoppage, or like you said, they're going to throw the towel in, or it's going to be like one of those one-sided UDs, decisions.
Yeah, unfortunately, I
like
see it exactly.
I 8-4.
Yep. Unfortunately, I see it exactly the same way you do, brother. I just don't see how Pacquiao can win. Like I said, even in his prime, this would be a really difficult assignment. But at age 42, I think it's just too much to ask of the living legend, right?
Yeah.
So, guys, let's move to our final topic of the day, saving the best for last. Fury versus Wilder 3.
Woo, woo, woo,
Pay-per-view prelims have been announced for July 24th. And guys, if you were hesitant about whether or not to purchase this event, well, that's been pretty much cleared up by both Top Rank and PBC. They have put together a beautiful night of heavyweight action. All three preliminary bouts should be fire. To open up the pay-per-view broadcast, you've got the return of Big Baby Jarrett Anderson against an unnamed opponent.
The real Big Baby is what they call itself.
Yeah, the non-juiced out Big Baby.
I don't think Big Baby's gonna like that.
Well, that's his problem. So, and the second preliminary bout is a rematch, long-awaited return bout.
Adam
Kaunaki and Robert Helenius to determine the eliminator, to determine the mandatory challenger for the WBA Heavyweight Championship. This is a great one. And then in your co-main event of the evening, brace yourselves, guys. Undefeated Frank Sanchez versus undefeated Efe Ajagba in a 12-round title eliminator bout. And obviously the main event, you got the long-awaited trilogy fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Sign me up, brother. Take my money, Fox and ESPN. That's all I have to say. Obviously everyone's looking, and Brian, chances are you're going to be there live to see it.
Yep.
But in your mind, which preliminary bout are you most looking forward to?
Preliminary bout? I'm looking forward to Efe versus Frank Sanchez.
Oh my word! Yeah, that is going to be a great fight, man. You look at the style matchup, man. This is a great fight. Credit to this is how it's done. Two different promoters, two different platforms, and they're working together to give the real bosses of boxing something that they'll want to pay for and remember for a very long time. This is the way to do it. Frank Sanchez will be coming into this fight 18-0 with 13 knockouts from Cuba. He's the pocket counterpuncher. No, he doesn't have the most power in the division, but he is possibly the most defensively savvy outside of Fury, right? In the top 10. Who do you like in this matchup, brother? Do you like skill or power in this matchup?
See, it'd be different if Efe had that Deontay Wilder explosiveness. I like his right hand, but he's there. Like, he's a lot stiffer than Deontay Wilder, and his head is there to be hit.
Yep.
But Frank Sanchez doesn't pack that power, and it just depends on if he can get Efe to respect his power.
Yeah, you know what? What I always point to in this matchup is Efe Ajagba versus Jonathan Rice that took place in September of 2020. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Rice was crafty enough, and no, he's not at the elite level, but he was crafty enough to take away Efe Ajagba's right hand. You can't tell me that Eddie Reynoso and Frank Sanchez aren't smart enough to do the same thing.
Yes.
That's what I worry about for Efe Ajagba. But yeah, this guy, if he does land that right hand, look out. And dude, Efe Ajagba, he'll come into the ring with 15-0. 15 wins, no losses, and 12 big wins coming by way of knockout. This is a great fight between two undefeated blue chip prospects in the heavyweight division. I love it. But let's talk about the rematch. Adam Kaunaki versus, the Nordic Nightmare, Robert Helenius. Oh, geez. You know what? I love this fight. I can't tell you guys. This may be the best fight card of the year, guys. Obviously, the first fight, it was a surprise to everyone who didn't witness the weigh-in. You saw Adam Kaunaki come in at a very fluffy 250 pounds.
Yeah.
You saw Robert Helenius come in at a very lean 230. Now, say what you want about Robert Helenius. He's, had several knockout losses over his career, throughout his career. In fact, a shocking one to Gerald Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's in shape, and if he can time and counter you coming in with that, short, compact right hand, he has the power to put you on your ass and for good.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see this playing out any differently this time, Brian?
I think that I think that Helenius is gonna win again. I just don't see how Adam Kaunaki, he just comes straight forward.
Yep.
With no head movement, and he's there to be hit, and his chin isn't the best.
Well, it used to be, in my opinion, and what most people aren't talking about is the job that Chris Arreola did on Adam Kaunaki. Yes, Kaunaki went the distance and won that fight. But look at all the punishment that he took during that fight. In my opinion, that took years off of Adam Kaunaki's career. And in my opinion, I don't think his chin will ever be the same after that.
Nope.
And why no one's talking about that, I have no idea.
Yeah, he did give Kaunaki all he can handle.
So in your mind, it's been about a year since this fight. It's been a year and a half since that fight took place, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you see Adam Kaunaki improving defensively over that time?
I mean, it's possible. It just depends on how bad he want to improve and him believing in his coach, if they're teaching him to be more defensively sound, and him watching film and studying film of a defensive fighter. It takes, you have to be a sponge. You have to be willing to learn and willing to change. You know what I mean? The only time you're going to tell is, like I said, in a fight. Everybody, like Tyson said, everybody got a game plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yep. Look, unless Adam Kaunaki, and you're absolutely right, unless Adam Kaunaki has tried to improve upon his method of closing the distance and cutting off the ring, incorporating more feints, working behind a much healthier and educated jab, he is all but done for.
Right.
Robert Helenius, this guy can crack. He always has been able to. Guys, if you weren't sure about it, go back and look at his fights against my brother Layman Brewster, former heavyweight champion, as well as Sam Peter, former heavyweight
Layman
champion.
Brewster is the hometown dude, home state. He's another fellow Indiana, a Hoosier.
Yep, I love Layman, man. He is one of the best guys you'll ever meet in the sport.
I met him a couple of times.
Oh, man. What's not to like about Layman? He is always such a good, God-fearing guy, man. I love the man. And, I hope everything's going well. I haven't talked to him in a while, but, that fight ruined him. Against Helenius, it detached his retina, and he went blind in one eye. Had to retire from boxing.
I wonder why I've seen that, but I wonder why he didn't never have surgery on it.
He tried several times. I remember talking to him in the waiting room while he was getting ready to go into the hospital, and we prayed for a miracle and a healthy recovery. And he knew it was a long shot, but he's had several surgeries and none of them were successful. So. Tell you what, he's a great guy and a tremendous ambassador for the sport. And I tell you what still sticks out in my mind, one of the last great heavyweight fights that we've seen in the past 20 years, Layman Brewster versus Sergey Liahovich on Showtime. That was a time capsule instant classic. And I still love watching that fight to this day, man, even though my brother lost. But, yeah, man, prayers go out to Layman Brewster. I hope he's doing well. I'll have to give him a call soon. But, unfortunately, man, when you put yourself through that much punishment, well, your shelf life as a fighter at the world-class level diminishes considerably. And unfortunately, I think that's what we've seen with Adam Kalinowski. So let's go to the main event, Dancler.
Yep.
Wilder versus Fury 3. I'll cut to the chase. Who do you like and why?
If I have to bet, if I have to pick, I would definitely give the edge to Fury. He has the momentum in his favor. He's coming off a dominating performance. And, it's up to Wilder, it's up to Wilder to make the adjustments. I believe that Wilder's always dangerous because of the power he possesses. I feel like that Fury is going to win a majority decision, maybe a UD, but I think it's going to be a lot better fight than last time. I think that Wilder's going to give a good account of himself. They're really believing in Malik Scott's game plan that they got. Whatever it is, they believing in it. And I think that Wilder, as far as the media, he should have kept his mouth shut, and, just fought. But, hey, he's Deontay Wilder and I'm Brian Dancler. So I can't really tell him how to, I would have handled a lot different, but yeah. I can't, I can say how I feel about it. I felt like that, some of the stuff was wrong that he said, and maybe he should have, even if he thought that, he should have kept it to himself and been a little bit more humble and graceful in defeat.
Yeah. Speaking of that, obviously it was very surprising to me and to a lot of people. Because watching the training videos, you're like, wow, okay, Wilder's finally accepted. And he's realized that it's his deficiencies, the reason why he lost. Not glove gate, not tempered water, not an egg weight in the gloves. But then he went on an interview though with Ray Flores and doubled down on the glove gate conspiracy theories. In my opinion, Brian, that's not very promising if you're hoping for a more competitive fight.
True.
So that goes to our final topic of the day. Deontay Wilder has already promised that they've got someone coming into camp that's going to monitor the hand wraps and the gloves this time around. Someone who specializes in this area. From what I've heard, and if I had to guess, it's going to be someone who is familiar with being in camp with Deontay Wilder, and that's expert trainer and rival CEO, Russ Anber. This is a guy who's a glove manufacturer. He's been around the sport for 40 years. If anyone can spot any abnormalities in hand wraps, gloves, anything like that, it's this guy, Russ Anber. I'd be willing to bet that it's Russ. What are your thoughts? And do you think this is going to be a confidence booster for Deontay? Or do you think it's going to serve as a, distraction heading into his career-defining third fight with Fury?
Definitely a confidence booster. I will hire the best person for the job, too. It's better to be safe than sorry. I just felt like maybe he shouldn't have said some things that he said, some of those things. But, I think he really believes in himself. And also, you got to find some way to sell the fight again, because a lot of people think he's about to get mocked up. If he can convince people, it was the gloves, or, maybe he could interest more people, because a lot of people felt that he should have stepped aside and let AJ and Fury get it on.
Yeah, you know what? If I were advising Deontay Wilder, I would have advised him to just take step aside money and be happy with $5 or $10 million doing it, and take a couple of tune-ups in the interim, just to get your confidence back, get back in the win column, and also have more time to add those new wrinkles to his fight game? In my opinion, one camp, as smart as Malik Scott may be, and as good of a relationship he may have with Malik, in my opinion, one camp isn't enough to add those new wrinkles to muscle memory, Brian. Now, you're a heavyweight fighter. How much time is it to add new technique to your fight game? How long does it take in the gym to become muscle memory where it's second nature to you, brother?
I think he's had enough time, like a little bit over. It's been over a year. I think that it all depends on Wilder. Wilder can be his worst enemy. You know what I'm saying? But from what I see, the eyes, he's definitely trying new things and he's trying to correct some of his flaws. And I like that. You know what I'm saying? But as I said, for Kanaki, everybody has a game plan till they get hit in the mouth. So we have to see him under the lights, see him walk out, see the first few rounds. I got to see. But I definitely think that knowing that the guy he is, I think that he wants to get revenge bad. And I think he's in tip-top shape. And I think, to be honest, I've seen pictures of Fury. They saying he boarded a jet back over there to the UK. He looks flabby. But he always looks flabby, though.
Yep. Brian, I'm going to quote, and I haven't had a chance to get your thoughts on this, so I'm going to ask you, brother. And please don't hold anything back. This doesn't have to be a PG-rated show.
Okay.
So I want to get your thoughts on the recent comments of Paulie Malignaggi. He said this about Fury versus Wilder 3. He said, quote, I think Wilder's going to get absolutely eviscerated in this fight. I think he's going to get smoked to where he's never the same again because he took a bad beating the second time around. The first time around, I thought Fury outpointed him. The second time around, he took a bad beating, and that will usually change a lot of guys in general. Right. If you're going to ask for that type of beating again, I don't see where he's going. Here's the thing. Wilder doesn't know how to fight backward. And you're not going to be able to figure out how to fight going backward in 1 year. End quote. Do you agree or disagree, and why or why not?
Hell no. Fuck Paulie Malignaggi. No disrespect to Paulie. He was a good fighter. But I think that he is, I definitely believe that Wilder's going to come on the front foot. And I believe it's going to be a harder fight for Fury, which is why they were trying to go for the money. I believe that Wilder keys to victory is going to be just simply to be first. I like the way Malik Scott's gotten him throwing his jab at different angles, not keeping his head on that line in the middle.
And using feints. Using
the feints. Malik Scott, I can tell, knows something about boxing. And I believe that, Fury, this is going to be a much tougher fight for Tyson Fury because they caught Wilder off guard and by the element of the surprise because Wilder was so confident in himself and cocky that he didn't believe that Fury could do what he did. He didn't believe that Fury was going to bring the fight to him like that. And so I believe that it's going to be a much tougher fight that I would lean towards Fury, but I'm not going to count Deontay Wilder out. In fact, I'm probably going to bet like $50 to $100 on him as an underdog.
Brian, this may shock you, brother. And this may be a very unpopular decision. But I just have this strange hunch that we're going to see Deontay Wilder spark Fury out between rounds 3 and 5. And here's why. If you guys don't think Deontay Wilder can fight backing up and stay disciplined and stay true to the strategy.
The Stavern fight.
Guys, go watch the title. Go watch his very first title effort against the favored Berman Stivern, in which he fought the entire fight going backward, fighting behind a very educated jab to the body and head, throwing a very compact 1-2 down the middle, hurting Berman Stivern several times, but never, like he always showed Stivern the appropriate amount of respect, never was careless, never just started winging bombs, stayed disciplined, stayed focused, and earned a very comfortable 12-round decision. In my opinion, if he uses that same amount of discipline, focus, and strategy, he beats Tyson Fury this time.
I could see that happening. You know, I could see it happening. It wouldn't shock me.
Guys, I think too much is made on that second loss. And yeah, it can be debilitating mentally. Look, and this is all going to be contingent on the intangible of mental awareness and mental confidence, right? If Deontay Wilder comes into this fight brimming with confidence as he did before the first two fights, look out, guys, because with Deontay Wilder's athleticism and power, okay, no matter what strategy he uses, you can never count this guy out. He is the hardest puncher in the division, and it's the ultimate neutralizer. I don't care if you're fighting someone who is the much more proficient boxer puncher, but he carries the ultimate neutralizer to the ring, and that's that heavy right hand. And if he sets it up with an intelligent jab to the body and head, incorporating feints, incorporating throwaway punches or touch jabs, you might see him land something big, and it might be too much for Fury to overcome. Your final thoughts on this, because we're already an hour in, your final thoughts on this before we bid everyone an excellent afternoon.
My thoughts is it's 60-40 going for Fury's favor, but I think the element of surprise is going to be on Wilder's favor, because Wilder's going to bring something to the table that Fury's not used to seeing, and I think Wilder's going to keep Fury on his back foot, you know what I'm saying? But I think that Fury's going to jab, he's going to hold, he's going to do the same thing he did before, and you know what I'm saying? I lean towards him, but I would be rooting for Deontay Wilder for the knockout.
So, guys, according to Mr. Dancler, if you're going to bet on this, hedge your bet. Bet on a Tyson Fury decision. Hedge by a Deontay Wilder knockout.
Yes, you're right.
And there it is from your handicappers at WAWR Week Radio. I will say this, Brian, and one thing is very unfortunate. The only black mark on this fight coming up is that, guys, in 40 years, it seems that the boxing community hasn't learned a damn thing from its checkered history. This, and it saddens me to say this, but with all the, racial overtones leading into this crucial bout, with the boxing community being racially divided, this will be on July 24th at the T-Mobile Arena, the most racially charged and racially divided heavyweight fight since Larry Holmes versus Jerry Cooney.
And I will be in the building.
Well, promise me this, Dancler, you're going to be safe and you're going to take care of yourself, because I anticipate at the press public events, the weigh-in, you're going to see at least 3 or 4 fights break out among the fans.
I can't wait to get my hands on one of those UK names. I'll play. I'm playing, man. But, it's been a pleasure. I plan on being out there. And, I'll be going live. And I'll be letting people know they'll be in the mix with Mr. 616. I hope to see you out there. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to enjoy it because it's all heavyweight extravaganza. And it's going to be something to see, man. I love heavyweight fights. The knockout is always the chance of the knockout is looming in the air, and it's intriguing. You know what I'm saying? So be there or be square. Brian, people need to come out and see this fight.
There's boxing, and then there's heavyweight boxing.
Correct.
There's nothing like it, brother. That crackle, that anticipation, that one punch could end it all. I'll tell you what, there's nothing like the energy in the room after a devastating knockout. Let's go to Vladimir Fonseca. Vladimir, brother, thank you for joining us. He says Deontay Wilder will be white privileged on fight night.
Is white?
Oh, geez. I tell you what, and once again, I laugh because all of this racial tension is absolute nonsense.
I thought it looked like he spelled Dylan White. That's how you spell Dillian White last name.
Let's see it. It totally missed me. Deontay Wilder is white privilege. I didn't see that, brother. You're absolutely right. That was Dillian White. Thanks for the correction, Brian. I will say this. It's a damn shame that Dillian White doesn't bring more money to the table and isn't a bigger traction in America. Because in my opinion, we would have seen that fight happen a long time ago if he had been.
Mm-hmm.
But, and look, no fighter is afraid of any fighter, okay? They believe that they can beat any man in the ring on any given day.
Man, Wilder he'll knock Dillian White out, and I think Ortiz will beat the shit out. I think Luis Ortiz will beat the shit out of Dillian White, man. But
thank you for the correction, though. I completely missed that. I didn't see that spelling, so thank you for that.
Hey, no doubt.
But I'll say this. Last thing, Brian, before I let you go, brother.
Okay.
Do you see Anthony Joshua? If he's successful in getting past Alexander Usyk, and that's a big if, and if Deontay Wilder stops Tyson Fury or merely wins, do you see Anthony Joshua fighting Deontay Wilder next year or in December?
Absolutely. It's bigger fight global, worldwide than it's a bigger fight than Tyson Fury. Everybody wants to see that. That was the matchup everybody wanted to see from the beginning anyway.
That's right.
So it'd be they both storylines would match up. He got a loss and came back and got redemption. Wilder got a loss and came back and got redemption. It's a no-brainer.
Indeed. Well, I tell you what, regardless, fight fans should celebrate the fact that we're seeing the best fight the best. And you may have been disappointed that we didn't immediately see Fury versus Joshua. But guys, we're getting two for the price of one here now. We're getting basically a heavyweight tournament of elite level fighters. Fury versus Wilder in the semifinals. Joshua versus Usyk in the other semifinals. And we're going to see the winner of both contests meet in the wintertime in December. I tell you what, may the best man win. I can't wait, and boxing is the better for it. Guys, I don't care what the hell Dana White says, but guys, I'm sorry. You look at the schedule, the way it's formulating, the possibility of matchups, and the fact that the best are fighting the best this year in 2021. Boxing couldn't be at a healthier state, in my opinion. Mr. Dancler, it's always a pleasure, brother. Please tell everyone where to find you, sir.
Well, you can find me on Facebook, Lamar Dancler, on Snapchat and Instagram is King Lamar. I'm also an admin and one of the founders of Royalty Boxing Talk. You can come and find me there. You know what I'm saying? Where loyalty is royalty, man. We welcome the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on over there. Just be respectful.
Brian, it's been a pleasure, brother. Guys, on behalf of Brian Dancler, my name is Joseph Herron. If you haven't already, please subscribe to WAWR Week Radio, as well as go sign up for Royalty Boxing Talk on Facebook. But on behalf of Brian, my name is Joseph Herron. You've been listening to WAWR Week Radio. Have an excellent Wednesday.